The alarms screamed through the Imperial Medical Wing as Lisa Martinez rushed down the corridor, her boots pounding against polished stone. 3 days. The Emperor's newborn dragons had refused food for 3 days, and the entire palace stood on the edge of panic. Behind the reinforced glass walls, 2 crimson hatchlings, no bigger than house cats, shrieked and clawed at anyone who approached. Lisa pressed her palm against the scanner. The door hissed open, releasing a wave of scorching heat. Inside, 5 Kaltor physicians backed against the far wall, their blue skin pale with fear. The head physician, a veteran named Vex, had claw marks running down his arm. "They will die by morning," Vex said. "The Emperor will have our heads." Lisa stepped into the chamber. The dragons paced in their titanium enclosure, hissing at the staff. Their tiny claws scraped metal. Trays of exotic meats lay untouched. Mineral supplements had been knocked over. Everything the Kaltor Empire knew about dragon rearing had failed. "Has anyone tried human methods?" Lisa asked. Vex stared at her. "These are Imperial dragons, ancient bloodlines stretching back 10,000 years. Your species has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. And yet you called me here." Lisa moved closer. The dragons focused on her, hissing, intensifying. But she noticed something the Kaltor had missed. The hatchlings pressed together when threatened. They were terrified. Commander Jake Nelson burst in, his face tight. "Martinez, the Emperor is demanding updates every hour. If those dragons die, the Alliance dies with them. Earth becomes vulnerable to the Vrax incursions. I understand the stakes, sir." "Do you?" Jake moved beside her. "Those hatchlings represent the Emperor's legitimacy. Without them, we are looking at civil war across 17 star systems." Lisa studied the creatures. They had stopped hissing at her. One tilted its head, watching with curiosity. "They are babies," she said quietly. "Everyone keeps treating them like weapons. But they are just scared babies who lost their mother." Vex made a dismissive sound. "Sentimental thinking. Dragons are predators from birth. Maybe that is the problem." Lisa turned to face the physicians. What happened when they hatched? Vex consulted his datapad. Standard protocol. When the dragons emerged, they were immediately separated from shells, cleaned, cataloged, and brought here. You took them from their mother's scent, cleaned them, separated them from everything familiar. Then you wonder why they will not eat. "The mother dragon died 2 months ago," Jake said. "But the shells would have carried her scent. You destroyed their only connection." Lisa looked at the dragons. "They are traumatized." Jake rubbed his face. "Can you help them?" Lisa approached the enclosure slowly. Both dragons fixed their eyes on her. She knelt to their level. "I need you to leave. All of you." "Absolutely not," Vex protested. "Then we are dead anyway. Your methods failed. Let me try mine." Jake hesitated, then nodded. Everyone out. The door sealed. Lisa was alone with the dragons. She sat cross-legged, ignoring the heat. The hatchlings watched with unnerving yellow eyes. Minutes passed. She did not move, just breathed slowly. Finally, the smaller dragon took a step forward. Its nostrils flared. It crept closer until barely a meter away. Then it made a soft, questioning chirp, the sound of a baby calling for its mother. Lisa began to hum, an old lullaby. The dragon's head tilted. The second hatchling moved closer, drawn by the sound. Lisa kept humming. The smaller dragon pressed its nose against her knee. Its scales felt like warm glass. Lisa slowly reached out one hand. The dragon leaned into her palm, trembling. "I know," she whispered. "I know you are scared. But I am here now. You are not alone." The second dragon approached. Within minutes, both hatchlings had climbed into her lap, curled together. Lisa wrapped her arms around them carefully. For the first time since hatching, the Emperor's dragon stopped crying. Outside, Jake and Vex watched through monitors in stunned silence. On screen, they saw Lisa cradling 2 Imperial dragons. And then, something that defied understanding. The dragons began to purr. Lisa looked at the camera and mouthed 3 words. "Bring me food." Not exotic meats or supplements. Something simple. Get me eggs and milk. The Kaltor physicians would call her insane, but as Lisa felt the steady breathing of the hatchlings against her chest, she knew she was right. They did not need protocols. They needed comfort, warmth, someone who would not give up on them. The Imperial kitchens delivered warm milk mixed with ground meat and raw eggs within 20 minutes. Vex watched through the observation window as Lisa accepted the supplies, his expression mixed with horror and fascination. The Emperor himself had joined them in the observation room, his massive form radiating tension. His scales gleamed like polished rubies. "If the human fails, Commander Nelson," the Emperor rumbled, "your species will be removed from our protection. The Vrax will consume your worlds within a year." Jake kept his face neutral. "Understood, Your Majesty." Inside the chamber, Lisa had constructed a makeshift nest using heated blankets. She settled the dragons into it. They watched her with intelligent eyes, no longer hostile, but deeply uncertain. The smaller one, which Lisa mentally named Scout, chirped softly. The larger one, Blaze in her mind, remained silent but alert. Lisa cracked an egg into a bowl. The dragon's nostrils flared immediately. Their heads tracked her movements with predatory focus. Good. They were interested. She had wondered if dragons would recognize eggs as food by instinct. The way both hatchlings focused suggested her guess was correct. She held the bowl low. Scout crept forward first, always the braver. The hatchling sniffed the raw egg, then its tongue flicked out. A moment later, Scout plunged its entire snout into the bowl and began feeding with desperate hunger. Blaze needed no encouragement. Within seconds, both dragons were fighting over the egg. Lisa prepared 5 more bowls, adding the milk meat mixture to 3. The dragons devoured everything. They ate with such enthusiasm that Lisa found herself laughing despite the crushing pressure. When they finished, their bellies were visibly distended, and their scales seemed brighter, more vibrant. "Impossible," Vex breathed from the observation room. 3 days without food, and she gets them to eat in minutes with common eggs. The Emperor leaned forward. "What is the human doing now?" Lisa had retrieved a soft cloth and was gently cleaning the dragons' faces. They submitted with surprising docility, even leaning into her touch. Then she did something that made every Kaltor gasp. She picked up Scout and cradled it against her chest, supporting its weight like a human infant. The dragon's head rested on her shoulder, tail wrapped loosely around her waist. "She treats an Imperial dragon like a pet," an advisor hissed. "This is sacrilege." But the Emperor raised one clawed hand for silence. "No, she treats it like a child, like something precious that must be protected. When did we forget that dragons are born, not forged?" Lisa began humming again, that same gentle melody. Scout's eyes drooped. Blaze made a sound like a tiny engine running down. Within minutes, both dragons were asleep. Real sleep, not the fitful dozing they had managed before. Their chests rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. Jake exhaled slowly. "She did it. They are alive. They are eating." "For now," Vex said. "But can she keep them alive?" "Dragons require constant care for the first month. They must be fed every 3 hours. One human cannot provide all of this. Then she will have help." The Emperor stood. "Commander Nelson, your nurse has proven herself. She will be appointed primary caretaker for my heirs. Whatever resources she requires will be provided immediately." "Your Majesty," Vex protested, "this is unprecedented. No human has ever been entrusted with Imperial dragons." The Emperor's eyes blazed. "Let them complain. The humans succeeded where all our physicians failed. That is strength, not weakness." Lisa did not hear this conversation. She was too focused on the sleeping dragon in her arms. Scout weighed maybe 5 kilograms, but felt heavier somehow. The weight of responsibility. She had bought these hatchlings a few more hours of life. But this was just the beginning. Dragons grew fast when properly fed. In weeks they would be too large to cradle. In months they would breathe fire hot enough to melt armor. In years they would be apex predators. But right now, they were just babies who needed her. The door opened. Lisa looked up to see Jake entering, followed by the Emperor. She started to stand, but the Emperor gestured for her to remain seated. "Do not disturb them," he said, gazing at his offspring. "They are peaceful for the first time." Lisa swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I should explain my methods. Traditional methods failed." The Emperor knelt, bringing his huge head level with hers. Up close, his scales were thousands of shades of crimson, forming patterns of incredible complexity. "You saw what others could not, that my children were not artifacts to be maintained, but living beings in pain. For this, I am grateful. I just did what seemed obvious," Lisa said quietly. "To you, perhaps. But we Kaltor forgot simpler truths. We forgot that strength also means protecting the vulnerable." The Emperor reached out one massive claw and gently stroked Blaze's head. The dragon stirred but did not wake. "You will stay with them, train them, raise them. Whatever you need, you will have." "Sir," Lisa said to Jake, "I am just a nurse. I am not qualified to raise imperial dragons." "You are the most qualified person in this empire," Jake replied, "because you are the only one who saw them as what they are." The Emperor stood. "I will make the announcement personally. A human has been chosen by my heirs. This will shock the court and worry our rivals. Excellent. Let them worry. While they plot, my dragons will grow strong under your care." He paused at the door. "One more thing, Lisa Martinez. If you succeed, if my children live and thrive, Earth will have an ally for generations. The Kaltor Empire will protect your homeworld as if it were our own." After he left, Lisa looked at Jake. "No pressure, right?" Jake managed a weak smile. "You wanted adventure when you signed up. I wanted to help people. I did not expect to become a dragon nanny for an alien empire." "Can you do it? Honestly?" Lisa looked down at Scout, still sleeping peacefully in her arms. She could feel its heartbeat, fast and strong. "I do not know, but I am going to try my absolute best." Over the next hour, medical staff prepared a private suite adjacent to the medical wing. They installed heating systems that could raise the temperature to dragon-comfortable levels. They brought in supplies, monitoring equipment, and enough food to feed a small army. Lisa requested a rocking chair, which confused the Kaltor staff, but was delivered anyway. As night fell across the Imperial Palace, Lisa sat in that chair with both dragons in her lap. She had fed them twice more. They had eaten eagerly each time, their strength visibly returning. Now they dozed against her, occasionally making soft chirping sounds that seemed to mean contentment. Through the window, she could see 3 of the Empire's 5 moons rising over distant mountains. Somewhere in the palace, the Emperor was announcing his unprecedented decision. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Vrax were planning their next attack. Somewhere on Earth, her family was going about their lives, unaware that their daughter held the fate of billions in her arms. Lisa began to hum again, that old lullaby. The dragon settled deeper into sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She would need to establish feeding schedules, begin socialization training, and figure out how to manage dragons as they grew larger. She would need to earn the trust of an entire empire. But tonight, she had done the impossible. She had saved 2 lives that everyone else had given up on. And as Scout's tiny clawed foot pressed against her wrist, Lisa felt something unexpected. Not just responsibility or determination, but genuine affection. These were not monsters or weapons. They were her babies now, and she would protect them with everything she had. The door opened quietly. Vex entered, his earlier hostility replaced with cautious curiosity. "I came to apologize," he said. "I dismissed your approach because it seemed too simple, too primitive. I was wrong. You followed the training you had," Lisa said kindly. "Sometimes the old ways stop working." Vex approached slowly, careful not to disturb the dragons. "May I ask something?" How did you know what they needed? Lisa thought about her grandmother's farm, about bottle feeding orphan lambs in winter, about sitting up all night with a sick calf. "Where I come from," she said, "we have a saying. Every creature, no matter how strong it will become, starts out helpless. And in those first moments of life, Kindness matters more than anything. Vex was silent for a moment. I have spent 40 years studying dragon physiology. I know their anatomy, their biochemistry, their history, but I never thought to ask what they might feel. They feel everything, Lisa said softly. Fear, hunger, loneliness, just like we do. Blaze stirred, making a small sound. Lisa adjusted her hold, supporting the dragon's weight more securely. The hatchling settled immediately, trusting her completely. Vex watched this with wonder. The Emperor was right, he said. You are exactly what they need. I will assist you however I can. My knowledge of dragon biology combined with your understanding of their emotional needs. Perhaps together we can ensure they thrive. I would appreciate that, Lisa said. I am making this up as I go. Any expertise you can share will help. After Vex left, Lisa finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of exhaustion. She had been awake for nearly 20 hours. Her back ached. Her arms trembled. But she could not bring herself to put the dragons down. Not yet. They trusted her now. Moving them might break that fragile bond. Jake returned with food and coffee. Real earth coffee. You should eat. And sleep. I can watch them for a few hours. They might wake up scared if I am not here. Then I will get you when they wake. Jake, set the food on a table. Lisa, you cannot run yourself into the ground. If you collapse, who will care for them? He was right. Reluctantly, carefully, Lisa transferred both dragons to the heated nest. They murmured in protest, but did not fully wake. She ate quickly, barely tasting the food. The coffee helped push back the fog. The Emperor's announcement caused quite a stir, Jake said. 3 rival houses filed formal protests. They claim giving dragons to a human violates tradition. What happens if they push hard enough? The Emperor shut them down. Said anyone questioning his judgment was questioning his right to rule. That ended the protests quick. Jake paused. But Lisa, this makes you a target. Those houses see you as a threat. You will need protection. I am not important. The dragons are. You are important to them. Which makes you important to everyone. Jake finished his coffee. Starting tomorrow, you will have 2 royal guards assigned at all times. Non-negotiable. Lisa was too tired to argue. She nodded, then made her way to the sleeping alcove attached to the main chamber. Through the doorway, she could see the nest where Scout and Blaze slept. Monitors displayed their vital signs, all strong and steady. She lay down, not bothering to undress, her eyes closed. Just a few hours of sleep. Then she would wake and feed them again, keep them alive another day, and another, until they were strong enough to survive anything. As Lisa drifted off, she thought about her grandmother, about patient lessons in barn stalls and pastures. Her grandmother had died years ago, but Lisa felt her presence now, a comforting weight like a hand on her shoulder. I hope I am doing this right, Grandma, she whispered. I hope you would be proud. The only answer was the soft sound of dragons breathing in the next room. But somehow, that was enough. 3 hours later, Lisa woke to chirping. She stumbled into the main chamber to find both dragons awake and vocal, clearly demanding food. She prepared their meal, now understanding the mixture they preferred. More eggs, some meat, a little milk. They ate ravenously, and Lisa marveled at how much stronger they seemed. Their movements were more coordinated, their eyes brighter. As dawn broke over the Imperial Palace, Lisa sat in her rocking chair with Scout and Blaze curled in her lap once more. The first day had been survival. Now came the real work, teaching them to trust not just her but others, helping them develop the strength and intelligence they would need, proving to an empire that a human's way could work. But as Scout nuzzled against her chest and Blaze's tail wrapped around her arm, Lisa felt something solidify inside her. Determination. Purpose. These dragons had chosen her as much as she had chosen them, and she would not let them down. The second day began with unexpected visitors. Lisa had just finished feeding the dragons when the chamber doors opened to admit Kaltor nobles. They wore elaborate robes decorated with house symbols, At their head walked Lady Corva, matriarch of House Silverscale, one of the families that had protested the Emperor's decision. Jake moved to intercept them, but Lisa waved him back. She set the dragons in their nest and stood. Scout and Blaze immediately began hissing at the strangers. "Lady Corva," Lisa said, bowing slightly. "What brings you here?" The matriarch's eyes were cold. "I came to see the spectacle. An imperial dragon, the symbol of our empire's might, reduced to a pet for a human primitive." "They are not pets," Lisa said evenly. "They are babies being cared for. Babies that refused to eat for 3 days under Kaltor care," Jake interjected. "Nurse Martinez saved their lives when everyone else failed." Lady Corva's expression did not change. "A temporary success. Dragons require discipline, training in the ancient ways. Your human softness will make them weak. When the Emperor realizes his mistake, when these hatchlings fail to develop proper traits, he will see that tradition exists for a reason." Scout suddenly lunged at the edge of the nest, snapping tiny jaws in the noble's direction. Blaze followed, both dragons standing protectively. They might be small, but their message was clear. Lisa felt pride surge. "They seem to have strong instincts to me. Aggression toward allies is not strength, it is poor training." Lady Corva gestured to an attendant, who stepped forward carrying an ornate box. "I brought a gift for the Imperial heirs, a traditional dragon toy carved from volcanic stone and blessed by the priesthood. My own offspring played with these for generations." The attendant opened the box, revealing a crystalline sculpture shaped like a smaller dragon. It glowed with internal light, beautiful and clearly expensive. Lisa hesitated. Refusing might insult the house. Accepting might suggest agreement with their methods. "That is very generous," Lisa said carefully. "May I examine it first? I need to ensure it is safe for hatchlings." Lady Corva's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting I would harm the Emperor's children?" "I am suggesting I do not know what materials are safe for dragons this young. If you could provide documentation on the composition, I would be grateful." The nobles exchanged glances. Lady Corva produced a datapad and handed it over. Lisa scanned the information. The volcanic stone contained trace amounts of minerals that might be toxic to hatchlings under 6 weeks old. She looked up at the matriarch, suddenly seeing the trap. If she had accepted without checking, if the dragons had been harmed, Lady Corva could claim it was Lisa's ignorance. "I appreciate the thought," Lisa said, handing back the datapad. "But this contains compounds dangerous for dragons this young. Perhaps you could send a different gift in a few weeks." Silence fell. Lady Corva's facade cracked, revealing surprise and anger. "You can read Kaltor medical documentation?" Commander Nelson provided translation software and database access. "I have been studying constantly." Lisa met the matriarch's gaze steadily. "I take my responsibility seriously, clearly more seriously than we anticipated." Lady Corva's tone shifted, becoming almost approving. "Perhaps you are not as foolish as I assumed. But tell me, human, what will you do when these dragons grow? When they are too large to cradle, when they become dangerous? Will your soft methods work then?" "I will adapt," Lisa said. "The same way any parent adapts as their children grow. Dragons are not children. They are weapons, tools of war, and symbols of dominion. If you forget that, you will raise cripples unfit for their destiny." Scout chose that moment to release a small burst of flame, barely more than a candle's worth, but shocking nonetheless. The dragons were not supposed to develop fire-breathing for another week at least. The medical staff gasped. Lady Corva's eyes widened. Lisa felt her heart racing but kept her expression calm. "They seem to be developing just fine." The nobles departed shortly after, their expressions troubled. Jake waited until the doors sealed before exhaling sharply. That was a setup. "She tried to poison them with that toy." "Maybe," Lisa said. "Or maybe she genuinely thought it was safe. Either way, we know now that people will test us. Test them." She looked at Scout, who seemed pleased with itself. "And apparently they can breathe fire earlier than expected when stressed." Vex entered, having monitored the confrontation. "That was remarkable. Dragons typically do not produce flame until their internal furnaces are fully developed at 2 weeks minimum. Scout is only 4 days old. Is that dangerous? Could it hurt them to use fire too early? Unknown. No dragon in recorded history has attempted it this young. Vex approached the nest carefully. May I examine them? Lisa nodded. Over the past day, she and Vex had developed a working relationship. He brought expertise, she brought intuition, and together they were keeping the dragons healthy. Vex ran scanners over both hatchlings, who tolerated his presence now that Lisa was nearby. Their core temperatures are elevated, Vex said, studying readouts. Metabolic activity is extraordinary. They are developing faster than any dragons I have seen records of. Is that good or bad? Both, potentially. Rapid growth requires enormous amounts of food and energy, but it also means they will reach maturity faster, which serves the Emperor's needs. Vex made notes. We should increase their feeding frequency, 5 times per day instead of 4. Lisa did the math. That meant even less sleep. But she nodded. Whatever they need. The rest of the day followed a grueling pattern. Feed the dragons, clean them, play with them to encourage development, monitor their health, catch brief moments of rest. Lisa had enlisted 3 Kaltor medical assistants to help. They were young, less set in traditional ways, and genuinely excited to be part of something unprecedented. By evening, Lisa was running on fumes. She had just settled both dragons for what she hoped would be a solid 3-hour sleep cycle when alarms shrieked through the palace. Jake burst into the chamber, his face grim. We have a situation. House Bloodclaw just attempted a coup. They tried to assassinate the Emperor during the evening council. Lisa's blood ran cold. Is he alive? Yes. His personal guard stopped the assassins. But 3 council members are dead, and Palace is in lockdown. Jake moved to the window, checking security measures. There are rumors that the assassination attempt was motivated by your appointment. Bloodclaw claims the Emperor has gone mad, trusting humans with sacred duties. So this is my fault. No. Jake turned to face her. This is about power. Bloodclaw has been looking for an excuse for years. You just gave them a convenient rallying point. But Lisa, we need to be realistic. If more houses join Bloodclaw, if this turns into civil war, you and those dragons become primary targets. Scout and Blaze were awake now, chirping anxiously. They sensed the tension. Lisa picked them both up, holding them close. What do we do? The Emperor wants you moved to a secure location. There is a fortress in the northern mountains, defensible and remote. You can continue caring for the dragons there while things stabilize. Running away looks weak. Dying looks even weaker. Jake's expression softened. I know you want to prove yourself, but those dragons need you alive. Everything else is secondary. Lisa looked down at Scout and Blaze. They gazed back with complete trust. Jake was right. Her pride did not matter. Only their survival mattered. Okay, when do we leave? Tonight. Pack only essentials. A transport is being prepared now. The next 2 hours were chaos. Lisa gathered supplies while medical staff packed equipment and food. The dragons, sensing urgency, became increasingly agitated. Lisa kept them close, talking to them constantly in that soothing voice they had come to trust. The transport was a military vessel, all hard angles and defensive armaments. Lisa strapped into a padded seat with the dragons secured in a special carrier beside her. Jake took the seat across from her, along with 4 royal guards whose expressions suggested they would die before letting anything harm their charges. As the transport lifted off from the palace landing pad, Lisa looked back at the glowing spires. Somewhere in those halls, the Emperor was fighting for his throne. Somewhere noble houses were choosing sides, calculating odds, preparing for war. And here she was, fleeing into the night with 2 baby dragons, hoping she could keep them safe long enough for them to matter. Scout pressed against the carrier's mesh, chirping plaintively. Lisa reached through and stroked its snout. I know this is scary, but we are going somewhere safe. I promise. Blaze joined its sibling, both dragons, trying to get as close to Lisa as possible. She wished she could hold them, but the transport's acceleration made that impossible. Instead, she kept her hand pressed against the carrier, maintaining that physical connection. The flight took 3 hours. Lisa dozed fitfully, jolting awake each time the dragons made noise. Finally, the transport descended toward a massive stone structure built into a mountain. Floodlights illuminated walls that looked ancient and impregnable. The fortress had stood for thousands of years, weathering countless conflicts. Now, it would shelter 2 tiny lives, and the human who protected them. They landed in an interior courtyard. The temperature hit Lisa as soon as the doors opened, bitter cold that made her gasp. The guards immediately activated thermal shields, but Scout and Blaze began wailing in distress. The cold was painful for them, potentially dangerous. "Get them inside now," Jake ordered. They rushed through corridors carved from solid rock. Heating systems activated as they passed, but the ambient temperature was still far too low. Lisa clutched the carrier close, trying to shield the dragons with her body heat. Finally, they reached a suite of rooms where portable heaters had already been set up, bringing the temperature to tolerable levels. Lisa opened the carrier. Both dragons spilled out, huddling together and shivering. She grabbed heated blankets and wrapped them up, holding them close. "I am here. I am here. You are safe now." It took 20 minutes for them to stop trembling. Lisa rocked them, hummed to them, and kept them pressed against her chest. Gradually, their body temperatures normalized. But the experience had frightened them badly. They refused to leave her arms for the rest of the night. Jake returned with food. "The fortress commander is tripling security around your wing. No one gets in without my personal authorization." "How bad is it in the capital?" "Bad. 5 houses have declared for Bloodclaw. 3 remain loyal to the Emperor. The rest are waiting to see which way the wind blows." Jake sat down heavily. "The Emperor is demanding daily updates on the dragons. Their health and growth are his only leverage right now. If they thrive, it proves his judgment was sound. If they fail, it proves Bloodclaw's claims that he has lost his way." Lisa looked at the sleeping dragons in her arms. No pressure at all. "Can you do it? Can you keep them alive and healthy while an empire tears itself apart around us?" Lisa thought about her grandmother again. About the old woman's hands, scarred from years of hard work but always gentle when they needed to be. About lessons learned in simplicity and patience. "I am going to try," she said quietly, "because they deserve someone who will not give up on them no matter what." Jake stood to leave, then paused. "For what it is worth, I think you are the bravest person I have ever met. You could have walked away from this a dozen times, but you did not." After he left, Lisa settled into a massive chair near the heaters. The fortress was cold and remote. The Empire was on the brink of civil war, and she was exhausted beyond measure. But Scout and Blaze were warm and breathing steadily in her arms. For tonight, that was enough. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she would face them the same way she had faced everything since the moment she first saw 2 terrified baby dragons, one moment at a time, one feeding at a time, one small victory at a time, until they were strong enough to face the universe themselves. The week at the mountain fortress fell into a demanding rhythm. Lisa woke every 3 hours to feed the dragons, who were now consuming astonishing amounts of food. Their growth was explosive. By day 5, Scout and Blaze had doubled in size. They reached Lisa's knees now, their wings starting to develop functional membranes. Their scales hardened, becoming actual armor rather than soft hatchling skin. The fortress staff, initially skeptical of a human caring for Imperial dragons, gradually warmed to Lisa. They watched her patience during feeding times, her gentleness during cleaning, her exhaustion as she pushed herself past human limits. Kaltor guards who had seen centuries of warfare found themselves stopping by the care suite just to watch her work. Commander Jake checked in daily with news from the capital. The situation remained volatile. The Emperor had defeated Bloodclaw's initial coup attempt, but the house had retreated to its strongholds and was gathering forces. Other houses remained uncommitted, their leaders calculating whether to support an emperor who had broken with tradition or a challenger who promised to return to the old ways. The Emperor needs proof that his gamble was worth it, Jake said during one briefing. He stood near the window, watching Scout and Blaze chase each other around the heated play area Lisa had constructed. He needs those dragons to be exceptional. Lisa was preparing their midday meal, mixing ground meats with mineral supplements Vex had sent from the capital. They are healthy and growing fast. What more does he want? He wants them to demonstrate imperial traits, strength, intelligence, the qualities that make dragons worthy symbols of rule. Jake turned to face her. Lisa, there is going to be a demonstration in 2 weeks. The Emperor has called a gathering of all the house leaders. He wants to show them his heirs, prove they're thriving under your care. Lisa nearly dropped the bowl she was holding. They are barely 2 weeks old. They are babies. Babies who can already breathe fire and fly short distances. Babies who have grown faster than any dragons in recorded history. Jake's expression was sympathetic but firm. I know this is not fair, but the Emperor is running out of time. If he cannot prove his strength, more houses will defect to Bloodclaw. We are looking at galaxy-spanning civil war. Scout approached Lisa, drawn by the smell of food. The dragon had grown so much that it now came up to her waist. Its eyes held that same intelligence, that same trust, but there was something new there, too, a spark of personality, of individual character. Scout was curious and brave, always the first to explore new areas or try new foods. Blaze was more cautious, more thoughtful, but fiercely protective of its sibling. What does this demonstration involve? Lisa asked quietly. Basic displays of their abilities, flight, fire breathing, following commands. Nothing dangerous, but enough to show they are developing properly. Jake hesitated. The Emperor also wants them to demonstrate a bond with you. Show the houses that your methods produce loyalty, not weakness. Lisa fed Scout, then Blaze, while she processed this information. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks to take dragons who were barely past infancy and turn them into symbols of imperial power. The weight of it felt crushing. After Jake left, Lisa sat with the dragons in their play area. They had finished eating and were now engaged in a mock battle, tumbling over each other and making sounds that were part growl, part laughter. They were so young, so innocent, despite their growing size and emerging powers. "How am I supposed to do this?" she whispered. Blaze broke off from playing and approached her. The dragon nuzzled her hand, then settled beside her with its head in her lap. Scout joined them moments later. They sensed her distress and offered comfort the only way they knew how, with simple presence, with trust. Lisa felt tears building behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. These dragons had no one else. The entire future of human-Kaltor relations rested on her ability to prepare them for a demonstration that could determine the fate of billions. She had to find a way. Over the next 2 days, Lisa began working with the dragons differently. Instead of just feeding and comforting them, she started teaching. Simple commands first. Come, stay, follow. Scout learned quickly, eager to please. Blaze took longer, more independent by nature, but eventually grasped the concepts. Light training was harder. The dragon's wings were still developing. They could manage short glides, jumping from elevated platforms and using their wings to control descent, but sustained flight remained beyond them. Lisa worked with them constantly, encouraging their attempts, praising their progress. "You are pushing them too hard," Vex said during one of his visits. He had traveled from the capital to check on the dragon's health. "They need rest. They need to be ready for the demonstration," Lisa said, watching Scout attempt another glide. The dragon launched from a low platform. Wings spread and managed to stay airborne for nearly 5 seconds before landing with reasonable grace. At what cost? Vex ran scanners over both dragons. Their stress hormones are elevated. They are developing muscle strain from overexertion. Lisa, you are risking their health. If they are not ready, if the Emperor looks weak, we are risking their lives and everyone else's too. Lisa's voice cracked slightly. "I do not know what else to do, Vex. I am out of my depth here." The old physician was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You care for them? That much is obvious. But you are treating this like a test you can study for, a problem you can solve through effort. Dragons are not puzzles. They are living beings with their own pace of development. You cannot force them to mature faster than nature intends. Nature does not care about political demonstrations. No. But dragons do care about stress. Push them too hard and they will rebel or break. Neither outcome helps anyone. Vex placed a hand on her shoulder. You succeeded initially because you understood their emotional needs. Do not lose that wisdom now. That night, Lisa lay awake thinking about Vex's words. She had been so focused on the demonstration, on meeting external expectations, that she had stopped paying attention to what Scout and Blaze actually needed. She had started treating them like projects rather than individuals. The next morning, Lisa changed her approach. Instead of drilling commands, she played with the dragons. She chased them around the Swede. She hid treats for them to find, encouraging their natural hunting instincts. She let them nap when they were tired instead of pushing for one more training session. Scout and Blaze responded immediately. Their stress behaviors faded. They became more engaged, more enthusiastic, and paradoxically, they learned faster. Without the pressure of forced training, they picked up commands naturally through play. Their flying improved as they chased each other rather than attempting prescribed exercises. Jake noticed the change during his next visit. They looked different, healthier somehow. I stopped trying to force them to be ready, Lisa said. Now I am just helping them develop at their own pace. And will they be ready for the demonstration? Lisa watched Scout execute a perfect gliding turn, chasing a toy ball. I do not know. But they will be as ready as they can be without sacrificing their well-being. That will have to be enough. The days blurred together. Lisa maintained her gentler approach, and the dragons thrived. By day 12, both could fly continuously for 30 seconds. By day 13, they were breathing controlled fire bursts, on command. Not because Lisa had drilled them relentlessly, but because they wanted to show her what they could do. The bond between them had deepened into something profound. On day 14, the Emperor himself arrived at the fortress. His transport landed with a thunder of engines, and suddenly the remote stronghold was filled with Imperial guards and advisors. Lisa had cleaned the care suite and groomed both dragons until their scales gleamed. Scout and Blaze sensed the importance of the moment and stayed close to her, their tails intertwined with nervous energy. The Emperor entered the suite, his massive form filling the doorway. Lisa bowed, and the dragons mimicked her gesture clumsily, making the Emperor's eyes widen with surprise. They bow? He rumbled. They copy behaviors they see me do, Lisa explained. It is how young creatures learn. The Emperor approached slowly. Scout and Blaze tensed but held their ground, trusting Lisa's calm presence. The Emperor knelt, bringing his head level with his offspring. For a long moment, father and children regarded each other. Then Scout stepped forward and chirped, the same questioning sound Lisa had heard that first night. The Emperor's eyes glistened when he spoke. His voice was thick with emotion. They sound like their mother. She made that sound when she was young, before she became the great dragon of legend. They are strong, Lisa said softly. Fast learners, brave but not reckless. In another few weeks, they will be flying freely. In a few months, they will be formidable. But are they ready for tomorrow? The Emperor looked at her. The houses are gathering. Bloodclaws bringing their war dragons as a show of force. My heirs must prove they are worthy of the throne. Can they do that? Lisa took a breath. Your Majesty, I can show you what they can do, but I need you to understand something first. They are 2 weeks old. Asking them to match adult dragons is impossible. If you judge them against that standard, they will fail. Then what should I judge them against? Judge them against what they were 2 weeks ago. They were dying. They refused food and had given up on life. Now look at them. Lisa gestured to Scout and Blaze, who were playing tug-of-war with a rope toy, their movements strong and coordinated. They are healthy, happy, and developing faster than any dragons in your history. That is your proof, not of their current power, but of their potential. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Show me what they can do. Lisa spent the next hour demonstrating the dragon's abilities. They flew, breathed fire, followed commands, and displayed coordination that impressed even the Emperor's veteran advisors. But more than their skills, what captured everyone's attention was the relationship between Lisa and the dragons. They moved in sync with her. They looked to her for guidance. They clearly loved her. This is unprecedented, one advisor murmured. Dragons typically bond with Kaltor handlers over months of intensive work. These hatchlings have imprinted on the human completely. Is that a problem? The Emperor asked. No, Majesty. It is remarkable. They trust her absolutely. That kind of bond is the foundation for everything else. As they grow, that trust will translate into loyalty and discipline. After the demonstration, the Emperor spoke privately with Lisa. You have done well. Better than anyone had right to expect. Tomorrow will be difficult. Bloodclaw will try to undermine your work, to make my heirs seem weak. Do not let them provoke you. Stay calm, stay professional, and remember that you have already won. These dragons live because of you. That night, Lisa barely slept. She ran through every possible scenario. Every way tomorrow could go wrong. Scout and Blaze sensed her anxiety and refused to leave her side, curling up against her in the bed that was barely large enough for all three of them now. Tomorrow we show an empire what you can do, she whispered to them. No pressure, right? Scout chirped softly. Blaze nuzzled her hand. They had no idea what was coming, no concept of political demonstrations or civil war. They only knew that Lisa had protected them, fed them, loved them, and they would follow her anywhere because of that. Lisa closed her eyes and thought about her grandmother one last time, about steady hands and patient wisdom, about the simple truth that caring for living things required both strength and gentleness, determination and compassion. She had given these dragons everything she had. Tomorrow would reveal if it had been enough. The demonstration hall was massive, carved from a single enormous cavern deep inside the mountain fortress. Thousands of Kaltor filled the tiered seating, representatives from every major house. Their scales displayed every color imaginable, from deep blues to brilliant golds, each shade denoting lineage and status. The air vibrated with tension and barely suppressed hostility. This was not just a demonstration. It was a trial. Lisa stood in the center of the arena floor with Scout and Blaze flanking her. The dragons had grown even more in the past day, now reaching her shoulders. Their scales gleamed crimson under the harsh lights. They sensed the crowd's mood and pressed close to Lisa, their tails intertwined with hers in a protective gesture that drew murmurs from the audience. The Emperor sat on a raised throne overlooking the arena. To his left sat his loyal houses. To his right, separated by a significant gap, sat representatives from House Bloodclaw and their allies. At their center was Lord Varrock, the House Patriarch who had led the coup attempt. His scales were so dark they appeared almost black, and his eyes held nothing but contempt as he gazed down at Lisa and the dragons. Commander Jake stood near the Emperor, his hand resting on his sidearm. Lisa had insisted he not accompany her onto the arena floor. This had to be her and the dragons, no one else. Either they proved themselves or they failed. There was no middle ground. The Emperor rose, and silence fell across the cavern. His voice echoed off stone walls. We gather today to witness the development of my heirs. 2 weeks ago they nearly died. Today they thrive under the care of a human who saw what we could not. That adaptability, that willingness to learn from others, is the strength that has built our empire across 1,000 worlds. Lord Varrock stood as well, or it is weakness disguised as wisdom. These hatchlings should have been raised by Kaltor in the traditional manner. Instead, they have been made soft by a species that has barely left their homeworld. Demonstrate for us, human. Show us what your primitive methods have produced. Lisa felt anger flare but suppressed it. Varrock wanted her emotional. He wanted her to make mistakes. She took a slow breath and looked down at Scout and Blaze. They gazed back at her, waiting for guidance. In their eyes, she saw complete trust. That steadied her. Scout, Blaze, Flight Pattern Alpha. The dragons launched into the air as one. Their wings beat in perfect synchronization as they spiraled upward toward the cavern's ceiling. The crowd gasped. Dragons this young typically flew clumsily, all awkward flapping and poor coordination. But Scout and Blaze moved with grace, their aerial dance practiced and precise. They reached the ceiling, banked in unison, and dove back down, pulling up at the last moment to land perfectly beside Lisa. Applause erupted from the Emperor's loyal houses. Even some of the neutral factions seemed impressed, but Varric merely sneered. Tricks, pretty tricks. Any trained bird can follow flight patterns. Show us fire. Show us the true power of dragons. Lisa had anticipated this. She gestured to the far end of the arena where targets had been set up. Metal plates, ceramic blocks, and stone pillars designed to test dragon fire at various intensities. Scout. Target 3. Blaze. Target 5. Both dragons inhaled deeply, their chests expanding. Then they exhaled streams of fire that crossed the arena in brilliant arcs. Scout's flame hit Target 3 dead center, melting through the ceramic block with ease. Blaze's breath engulfed Target 5, heating the stone until it glowed orange and cracked. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but the message was clear. These young dragons already possessed formidable offensive capability. More applause, louder this time. Lisa allowed herself a moment of relief. They were doing well, better than well, but she knew Varrock was not finished. Impressive, the Lord said, his tone suggesting the opposite. But fire and flight are instinct. Any dragon develops these abilities naturally. What of intelligence? What of discipline? These are the traits that separate imperial dragons from common beasts. This was the real test. Lisa had worked on this aspect more than any other, knowing it would be challenged. She walked to a complicated obstacle course set up at the arena's edge. Barriers, tunnels, elevated platforms arranged in a specific pattern. Scout. Course run. Standard time. Scout launched forward without hesitation. The dragon navigated the course with precision, leaping barriers, flying through gaps, using fire to activate trigger panels that opened gates. The entire run took 47 seconds. When Scout returned to Lisa's side, the dragon's eyes shone with pride. 47 seconds, Lisa announced. The record for a dragon of this age is 112 seconds, set by Lord Varrock's grandfather's dragon. That drew stunned silence. Even Varrock looked shaken. A dragon not even 3 weeks old had shattered a record that had stood for centuries, but he recovered quickly. One trial proves nothing. Let us see the other hatchling perform. Lisa had expected this too. Blaze. Course run. Elite time. The second dragon approached the course but stopped, looking back at Lisa with uncertainty. Blaze had always been more cautious, more thoughtful. The dragon was not sure it could match Scout's performance. Lisa knelt down, bringing herself to Blaze's eye level. You can do this, she said softly. I believe in you. Take your time. Do it your way. Blaze stared at her for a moment longer. Then the dragon turned and entered the course. Where Scout had used speed and aggression, Blaze used strategy. The dragon analyzed each obstacle before attempting it, finding efficient paths rather than relying on raw power. Blaze's run took 63 seconds, slower than Scout but still far better than any historical hatchling. 2 dragons, 2 different approaches, both exceptional, Lisa said, stroking both dragons' heads, because I did not try to force them into a single mold. I let them develop their own strengths. The crowd was buzzing now, conversations breaking out across all factions. Lisa could see calculating expressions on neutral house leaders. The Emperor's gamble was paying off. His heirs were not just surviving, but excelling. Then Varrock played his final card. Impressive performances. But there is one test you cannot fake. One trial that reveals the true nature of a dragon. He gestured to guards, who dragged forward a massive cage. Inside was a creature Lisa had never seen before. Twice the size of Scout and Blaze, with scales like black glass and eyes that glowed red. It radiated menace. A shadow drake. Barak announced. Predator of young dragons, naturally aggressive and territorial. If your hatchlings are truly strong, truly imperial material, they will face this creature and drive it off. That is the ancient test. That is how we have always determined which dragons are worthy. Lisa's heart hammered. This was insane. Scout and Blaze were barely 3 weeks old. The Shadow Drake was a mature predator. She looked up at the Emperor, but his face was stone. He could not intervene without looking weak. This was her decision. Jake's voice crackled in her earpiece. Lisa, you do not have to do this. Refuse. Call it barbaric. But Lisa was already thinking. She had studied everything she could about dragon behavior. Shadow drakes were territorial, but they were also pack animals. They responded to dominance displays. And Scout and Blaze had something the drake lacked. A bond with each other and with her. Release the drake, Lisa said, her voice carrying across the arena. The cage opened. The Shadow Drake emerged slowly, its eyes fixed on Scout and Blaze. The young dragons immediately moved into defensive positions, flanking Lisa and presenting a united front. The drake circled, looking for weakness. Lisa stood perfectly still, trusting her instincts and her dragons. The drake lunged at Scout, the more aggressive of the two. But Blaze reacted instantly, breathing fire that forced the creature to redirect. Scout used that moment to attack from the side, claws raking across the drake's flank. The predator roared and turned on Blaze, but Scout was already moving again, coordinating with its sibling in a way that suggested weeks of practice rather than instinctive response. Lisa watched, her hands clenched into fists. The dragons were fighting as a unit, protecting each other and protecting her. The drake was larger and stronger, but it was alone. Scout and Blaze had each other. That made all the difference. The battle lasted 3 minutes. The drake landed several hits, leaving scratches on both dragons. But Scout and Blaze gave better than they got. Fire and claws, aerial attacks, and ground assaults, perfect coordination born from their bond. Finally, bleeding and outmatched, the Shadow Drake retreated to its cage, defeated. Scout and Blaze returned to Lisa immediately. They were breathing hard, sporting minor injuries, but their eyes shone with triumph. Lisa dropped to her knees and embraced both dragons, checking them for serious wounds. The injuries were superficial. They would heal, but the victory was absolute. The arena erupted in chaos. The Emperor's supporters roared approval. Neutral houses looked stunned. Even some of Varrock's allies seemed shaken. 2 3-week-old dragons had defeated a mature predator through tactics and teamwork. It was unprecedented. Lord Varrock stood slowly. For a moment, Lisa thought he would challenge the result. Instead, he bowed slightly toward the Emperor. Your heirs are worthy, Majesty, and the human who raised them has proven her method sound. House Bloodclaw withdraws its challenge to your rule. The words hung in the air like thunder. Around the arena, other house leaders began standing one by one, bowing to the Emperor. The demonstration had done more than prove Scout and Blaze were strong. It had proven the Emperor's judgment was sound. His willingness to break tradition, to trust a human, had produced results that could not be denied. The Emperor descended from his throne and entered the arena. He approached Lisa and his dragon slowly, his massive form dwarfing them all. Scout and Blaze tensed but held their ground. The Emperor knelt, bringing himself to their level, and reached out one massive claw. Scout sniffed the claw cautiously, then pressed its snout against it. Blaze followed. Father and children made contact for the first time, and Lisa felt tears streaming down her face. This was what she had fought for. Not political victory or alliance preservation. This moment. This connection. You have given me back my family, the Emperor said to Lisa, his voice rough with emotion. And you have saved my empire. Name your reward. Anything within my power to grant is yours. Lisa looked at Scout and Blaze. At these dragons who had become her entire world in 3 weeks. I do not want reward, Majesty. I just want to keep caring for them, to see them grow, to help them become everything they can be. The Emperor's eyes held something that might have been respect or admiration or simple gratitude. Then you shall. Lisa Martinez, I name you Dragon Guardian of the Imperial House. You will raise my heirs until they reach maturity. Your position will be protected by Imperial decree, and Earth will have our protection for as long as stars burn." The crowd erupted again, but Lisa barely heard it. She was focused on Scout and Blaze, who were now playing with the Emperor, their father, with the same enthusiasm they showed with her. They had no idea they had just changed galactic history. They were just happy to have family. Over the following weeks, the fortress became something new, no longer a refuge but a home. Lisa worked with Scout and Blaze daily, but now without the crushing pressure. They trained when they wanted to train. They played when they wanted to play. They were allowed to be young. The Emperor visited regularly, building his own relationship with his children. Lisa taught him the techniques she had developed, helping him understand that dragons responded to kindness as much as commands. She watched their bond grow and felt satisfaction that had nothing to do with politics or alliances. Vex became a constant presence, documenting everything. The old physician had admitted Lisa's methods were revolutionary. He was writing papers, changing protocols, ensuring that future dragons would benefit from these lessons. "You have transformed our understanding," he told her one evening. "Not just of dragons, but of caregiving itself." But the most profound change was in Scout and Blaze themselves. They grew rapidly, soon reaching the size of large horses. Their scales hardened into true armor. Their fire became devastating. Their flight became powerful and precise. By 6 months old, they were formidable creatures by any standard. Yet they remained gentle with Lisa, no matter how large or dangerous they became. When she called them, they came running like puppies. When she was tired, they curled around her protectively. When she was sad, they nuzzled her until she smiled. The bond forged in those desperate first days never weakened. It only grew stronger. Jake visited on the 6-month anniversary of that first night. He found Lisa in the courtyard, watching Scout and Blaze practice aerial maneuvers. The dragons soared through mountain air, their crimson scales brilliant against blue sky, completely at ease in their power. "Hard to believe these are the same terrified hatchlings who would not eat," Jake said. "They were never the problem," Lisa replied. "Everyone else was. They just needed someone to see them as they were. And now look at them. The most promising dragons in Imperial history. The Emperor says they will be legendary." Lisa smiled. "Maybe, but to me, they will always be Scout and Blaze. The babies I held that first night. The ones who taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is just be there when someone needs you." Scout noticed Lisa and dove toward her, landing with precision that shook the ground. The dragon lowered its head, and Lisa scratched behind its eye ridge, the spot that always made Scout rumble with contentment. Blaze joined them moments later, and soon Lisa was buried under affectionate dragons who had forgotten they were supposed to be dignified Imperial heirs. Jake laughed. Legendary dragons indeed. That night, Lisa sat in her room, now larger and more comfortable than the stark chamber she had started in. She wrote in the journal she had been keeping since day one, recording everything. The challenges, the victories, the quiet moments. Someday, other people might need to care for orphan dragons. These notes could help them. But as she wrote, Lisa realized the lessons applied beyond dragons. They were lessons about trust and patience, about seeing individuals rather than categories, about believing in someone's potential even when everyone else has given up. These were human lessons as much as dragon lessons. She looked out her window at the mountains beyond. Scout and Blaze were sleeping in their chamber, a space that had been expanded 3 times now to accommodate their size. Tomorrow they would train more, play more, grow more, and she would be there, guiding them, protecting them, loving them. Lisa thought about Earth, about the family she had not seen in months. They were safe now, protected by Imperial decree. The Vrax had backed off when they learned Earth had Kaltor support. Her actions had saved billions, changed the course of history, but that was not what mattered to her. What mattered was 2 dragons who trusted her completely. 2 lives she had saved not through grand gestures but through simple, consistent care. That was her legacy, not the politics or the alliances, but the love. She closed her journal and prepared for bed. Through the walls, she could hear Scout's rumbling snore and Blaze's softer breathing, the sounds of family, the sounds of home. Lisa Martinez had come to an alien empire expecting to serve as a nurse. Instead, she had become a guardian, a teacher, a mother to dragons. It was not the adventure she had planned. It was something far better. As she drifted off to sleep, Lisa smiled. Tomorrow, Scout would probably try some reckless aerial stunt. Blaze would be more cautious, but would eventually join in. They would need feeding 5 times. They would need grooming. They would need playtime and training time and rest time. It would be exhausting and challenging and absolutely perfect. Because that was what family was. Not easy, but worth everything. And Lisa would not trade it for anything in the universe.